First and foremost, thank you for coming on my program on a Saturday night. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. We need to, reach a lot of different audience here who are going to turn out and vote and help take the country back from the career politicians and special interests and give it back to the people who pay the bills and want to determine their own future.
Amen. The biggest question that I have for you right now is, can you tell me more about your 1979 Dilly?
Oh, my 1979 Dilly. It is a Dilly, I must say. In fact, I was pulling for a nice day. I came home, and somebody said, hey, let's take the Dilly for a ride, and I couldn't find the dang thing.
That's too bad. You know, the best part, and I'm referring to, for those of you who don't understand what we're talking about, I'm referring to a new website, an attack website launched against Dr. Steele here that paints him as that evil rich white guy. And the best part of that website, in my opinion, is the very poorly photoshopped picture of you in the front holding the money bags. You know, if they would have just spent the extra $1.50 to give the guy a little bit more money, a little bit more time to make it look real, I think they could have gone a little bit better. I don't know. But that's my personal opinion. I was talking with your campaign manager just a little bit ago as we were trying to get you on the line, and he couldn't answer this on your behalf because he is not you, but what is the biggest problem that you believe that the country as a whole faces?
Well, I think without a doubt it's spending and the structure of the government's budget. There's no question the unfunded liabilities are up in the anywhere from 60 to 90 trillion, depending on how exactly you calculate it. But it's in the 50 trillion and up, no matter how you calculate it. And right now, that's incomprehensible numbers since the current budget's about 3.5 trillion. So that is undoubtedly, it threatens our way of life. It threatens the prosperity and future opportunity for the young folks of today, like you guys. And will give you an entirely different opportunity in the future than everybody's had up until this time. And the freedoms that were put together by our incredible form of government, where people have had a say and participated and been able to go out and determine how far they want to rise, or if they choose not to rise, where they want to sit. And the one thing we know for sure is that if in the United States, if you want to stand up and run, you can win the race and be successful and have a great life and pass that on to your kids. That is, if we can get rid of this estate tax. That's a different topic. But there's no question. The spending and the structure of the budget is by far the greatest threat right now.
What about the 15th district? What, in your opinion, is the biggest problem that we face locally as a district?
Well, no question. It's unemployment and the lack of jobs, and the way that the union bosses and the have forced their own workers out of a job. I was just down in Monroe last night meeting with some folks, and Monroe, of course, is the home of Lazy Boy furniture company, and that mechanism was invented by a local family down there, and that whole company was a family-owned business until a number of years ago, but they haven't made a chair there for over 35 years. Another big company down there, Monroe Automotive. You might have heard of Monroe Shocks. That was part of that company, a huge auto supplier. Haven't made a shock down there for over 25 years as well, and that's because of the cost of doing business and the crazy regulations. And I tell you, I was meeting with a bunch of UAW folks last night, and these guys are now retired, but now they look back and they see it. It's very clear. They're in their 55 to 60-year range in age, and they understand that the way they negotiated their contracts and their union bosses told them how to do things led to those jobs leaving. And so people are starting to catch on, and we need to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit and let the business owners invest their money and create some jobs and put these people back to work. And that's the critical thing that we have here. And you had mentioned the Tea Party type folks, and they're just a bunch of independents who are saying, hey, stop spending money and listen to what I'm saying down here.
Monroe is actually my stomping grounds. It's where I grew up at. So seeing the devastation that is going on, not only as a country, but very specifically, you mentioned a couple examples from where I'm from, and it's a reality. It's a harsh reality. We can no longer ignore the spending, as you say, and the unemployment. And truth be told, they're one and the same. If you really want to boil it down to progressivism and what the mentality is behind that, they are one and the same. What about, I was asking Mike a little bit ago, the grassroots movement, the volunteers, how's everything going for you on that end?
Oh, we've got fantastic volunteers, and the people who are, a lot of them are like me. When I would go out and talk to groups when I was first looking around at getting into the race and, investigating what people were thinking back behind the scenes, I'd walk into these rooms, there'd be 100 people there, and I'd ask, how many have been involved in politics before, a year ago, and there'd be only a few. And I would say, well, that's me as well. I'm just like you. I'm looking at getting involved here, and I've never done it before. And so there's just a lot of people who are very energized because they understand that their kids and their grandkids will not have the opportunities that they had. And a lot of people, just like me, they're saying, I don't want them to lose their opportunity on my watch.
One of the things that I admire a lot about you, sir, is first you're a doctor, but you're taking time out of your practice in order to serve the people and save the republic. That said, being a doctor, I'm sure you will go back to returning to your practice when you're done. But what about term limits in general? Do you believe that congressmen and people in general that are serving should have term limits? And let me back up. When I say in general, let's just stick with the Congress right now.
Well, they certainly need to be shorter than 55 years.
No, come on. We can easily tally on, since he was there since 1933, so we can put on a couple more years than that.
Well, yeah, that was his dad. I mean, he the current congressman has only been there since 1955, but it is fair to say, obviously, he's lived in Washington, D.C. since he was 7 years old, and so he, in fact, since 7 years old, has either been the son of a congressman or the congressman. And that's a pretty astounding thing when you think about it. That's the person who's making the laws and writing the rules regarding how people structure their life and who they have to answer to and how they answer and how they get ahead and what limits are placed on them. And you think about that, it's just really amazing. He obviously only knows one solution, and that's the solution of the government, when, of course, it's not the solution. The government should be there to help create the environment so that people can go out and succeed, because people will succeed. They're very creative and very entrepreneurial in a general sense. And everybody wins. The person who's not entrepreneurial can become employed. And the person who's entrepreneurial can succeed, pay their taxes, and help employ people and create new things. I mean, when you think about the phone system, for example, and we used to have, well, you guys don't remember. I mean, I remember clearly a black phone with a rotary dial sitting there in one spot, and every house had one, and there was even party lines. And when you walk into a phone store now and you look at this incredible array, you guys don't remember Dick Tracy either, but it's like the Dick Tracy watch.
There's a generational gap here, I know.
It's here, but, hey, I'm only 52, and that's the point. That is how fast things have changed once people were able to say, I've got a better idea. Think Apple computer. It doesn't mean you think of these crazy phones that we have now that do all these things, and that's a place where that used to be heavily regulated, and we had one phone, and it was black, and it sat in one spot, and it was a nightmare. And that's just one example of many. You look at Amtrak. That's a great example. Amtrak, 40 years ago, all the big train companies were going bankrupt. Well, the government said, well, we need to have Amtrak to keep the train system alive until the other ones can recover. But, of course, the other ones never recovered because they're always competing against a government-owned entity that loses money by the billions every single year. And so that means that it's impossible for a private company to compete against a government entity that loses billions, that's paid for, unfortunately, by you.
Yeah, sure.
And the next generation. So that's what we've got to get a hold of.
And when you put the free market system along with the genius of the American people, I mean, look where we've been. One of my favorite books is called The 5,000-Year Leap, and it's a book about the founding of the country, explaining what the founders meant and things of that nature. And the title means that in our short 200-plus year history as a nation, we've made a 5,000-year leap. But Dr. Steele, I'd like to ask you a question that I ask every politician that's running for office. If you can pick one moment from history, it can be American history or world history, that we can relate to today and learn from it, what would it be?
Well, I'm not sure I have to answer that because I'm not a politician.
Well, okay.
I'm a doctor who's going to serve our
country. Well played, sir. Well played. You know what I mean.
Well, let me think. One moment.
One moment. I know.
Well, I think it's getting back to the Declaration of Independence and the founding fathers and the Federalist Papers and the big discussion that happened then. And there was a discussion about who was going to have the power. Was it going to be a centralized, in that case, a monarchy, a king, or centralized government, or was it going to be the power rest with the people? And, of course, a lot of people don't realize when the Federalist Papers were out, there were the Anti-Federalist Papers as well. Mm-hmm. And the Federalist Papers, which was to convince everybody that we could have some form of central government with the states in control, the anti-federalist papers were arguing that even that was too concentrated of power.
Sure.
And so the discussion at that time wasn't, whether we needed to get rid of the king and have some different sort of system. It was how much control are the people really going to have? And, of course, when the Constitution was written, I've said in the past we could solve the energy crisis very easily if we could figure out some way to hook the framers of the Constitutions up to some sort of electrical generator, because they're spinning so fast in their grave with what's going on now, it would solve the energy crisis. Because things have been so convoluted from what they intended to do, with this power becoming highly centralized and these crazy spending binges and that sort of thing, that I feel like that's what people are waking up to. All these independents and these people who are saying, I'm coming into this system because it has become a government for the government instead of the government for the people.
That's exactly right, sir. I got to get going here, but I'll tell you what, in just one or two sentences, can you please tell us what would you prescribe for the country as a whole?
We need to have the spending stopped. We need to have accountability for Congress, and there needs to be transparency so that it is actually the people deciding things instead of the lobbyists and the special interests and the career politicians whose only interest is status quo, growing D.C., maintaining power. Tax and these sorts of things, that's all they want is keep everybody in there and keep growing their own power.
Amen. Dr. Rob Steele, RobSteeleForCongress.com. Best of luck to you, sir. Let us know if we can do anything to help you out, okay?
Keep up the great work, Matt, and jump to the next level. You, too, can be an entrepreneur.
Thank you, sir. More on the Clarkcast when we return. 734-822-1600 is the phone number. Back in just a minute.
Unveiling the insanity.
Government is not the solution to our problem.
Government is the problem.
This is the Clarkcast.